Every group's manufactured. It just happens that somebody, Bob Rafelson and Bert Schneider, our producers, came up with the idea of a rock and roll group, and they had the money to back it. That's all a rock and roll group does anyway. They wait for somebody to come along and says, we're going to make you big, and that's what they did. They had the money first, and here we are.
You're still very well. It's impossible to get out of the pop world when you're in it, because you take it along with you. And 40 years from now, the people that I'm playing to now, I'll be playing to then. I mean, they'll still be, if I'm popular, they'll still be my fans, and it'll be pop, but it'll...
Thank you so much for, well, when I started writing this, 500, but now we've surged to over 600 subscribers. I'm extremely grateful. It gives me a huge sense of pride, sitting here celebrating 600 subscribers on my own. And what? What's that noise? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Glass Gecko. I'm your host, Glass Gecko. Yes, I'm using that joke again. Today I'm going to talk about the Monkees' last ever studio album, Good Times, released in 2016. I'm a huge fan of the Monkees. This album here, Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn and Jones Limited, is one of my favourite albums of all time. And I know it's blasphemous for me to say, but I actually enjoy the Monkees more than I do with the Beatles. I know, I'm sorry. I know. I said I'm sorry. Jesus. Not to go too much into it, but when I was going through a bit of a hard time in life, the Monkees, the music and the show sort of kept me hanging on. And recently I've been into something of a bit of a Monkees re-obsession, if that's a word. It's been years since I actually fully listened to this album, and I wasn't actually planning to make a video on this. I recently got these in the mail, and really going over these was the only piece of Monkees related media I was planning to make a video on. So if you want to see that, then stay tuned. Let's turn that 600 subscribers into a 601. Anyway, I forgot how good the album actually was. Honestly, it's a bit of a banger, and I think it's a very important album to have been made, so I just wanted to make this video just to outline a few things which are important to me. On the menu tonight, I want to be talking about the backstory of the album, the artist and the influence, and the songs themselves, those we lost, and a conclusion. Are those to your liking, sir? Are those to your liking? Flipping weirdo, man. There's also just a few channel related things that I want to go over, upload schedule, stuff like that at the end of the video. But anyway, I've been dilly-dallying enough. Let's jump straight into the backstory.
You blew my mind. You turned back time. You changed my tune.
In 1965, Bob Rafelson and Bert Schneider conceived the idea of a Monkees TV show inspired by the film A Hard Day's Night. After a series of auditions which can be found on YouTube and are very entertaining to watch, they found the four needed. In 1966, Mickey, Davey, Nez and Peter were the four selected. The Monkees began. They were a band in a very manufactured and commercial sense. The production of their songs and their TV show were very much out of the hands of the four young men on the screen. As time went on, however, their musical and artistic influence began to be appreciated a bit more. I'm going to talk a little bit more about their influence a bit later in the video. Good Times was released in 2016 to mark the 50th anniversary of the Monkees. Rhino executives John Hughes and Mark Pincus wanted a new album for the band for commemoration of this landmark and called in Fountains of Wayne founder Adam Schlesinger. This was to help produce this new album. In 2016, Mickey, Mike and Peter were still with us. Davy Jones had passed away in 2012, but all four of them would have some productive influence in the album. The album consisted of a mix of new and old compositions. The title track Good Times was written by Harry Nilsson, a good friend to Mickey, and worked with the Monkees in the 60s with his songwriting ability. He died in 1994. The album also included contribution from other people that were very instrumental to the Monkees' success in the 60s. These include Neil Diamond, Boyce and Hart, my personal favourite Monkees songwriting duo, Goffin and King, and Barry and Levine. The album also consisted of other contributions from famous artists such as Andy Partridge of XTC, Rivers Cuomo of Weezer, Ben Gibbard of Def Cab for Cutie, Noel Gallagher and Paul Weller of The Jam. The album also boasted a nationwide tour, all of which can be found on YouTube. It received quite good critical reviews. I think a lot of the reviews took into account the actual situation and legacy of the band itself as well as the music, but I will say the album and the songs are absolute bangers, but again, I'll go into that a bit later in the video. The album was a pretty clinical ordeal. Derek Scansarelli of Vice interviewed each of the Monkees before the album's release, and this is something he had to say. There isn't much to romanticise about the recording process of Good Times. To put it bluntly, the truth is that there's no story to it at all. Don't get me wrong, Good Times is a great record. It's a breath of fresh air, featuring pop songs, beach music, and even a desperate love ballad. The work itself is a culmination of efforts of many, but it's more of a skillful curation than any broad artistic statement. As well as, honestly, the process is really no different than how Monkees records have always been made. As Dolan's made clear, it's pretty tactical from the group's onset. I know that this section has been a bit of a Wikipedia walkthrough, but I don't want to go into too much of a deep dive like I do with my other video essays. The important thing about this video is that I just want to get through to you the importance of the album and the influence of the Monkees. So I think this next section does a bit better to help my case. As I say before, there were a lot of different artists involved in the creation of this album, but this is not purely commercial. In the modern day, even still, the Monkees are still sort of viewed as a commercial fad, a manufactured band. They still don't really garner the same amount of respect as some of their other contemporaries. Now, in recent years, the view is slowly being stripped away. Their music is gaining a bit more respect, but the view is still pretty popular. I said it before, I'm a huge fan of the Monkees, so maybe I'm a bit too biased. But I always thought it was very strange that people's prime example of a fake band was four really talented musicians who could play instruments, were very good singers, one of which was classically trained on the piano. The songs that they themselves wrote still did well commercially. I think that their influence on pop culture shows four young men who genuinely had something to say.
Would you like to see all the kids in the country wearing hair like yours?
I would like to see all the kids in the country wearing the hair like they'd like to wear it.
How do you fellas, Mickey, how do you feel about that?
Exactly.
I'm with you.
When it first happened, there was a few comments made, one by the sheriff of Los Angeles. He said that the curfew should be abolished. He says, take the babysitting job out of the hands of the police, put it in the hands of the parents. If the parents think their kids can be out after 10, they should be out.
Most everybody that was there says that the vandalism was caused by kids in their very late, like 18, 19, 20, and 21, like that age kid. The only people representing the kids are the kids themselves. And nobody listens to kids talking for kids because kids are only kids, you know.
As this article puts it, the year 1966 marks a major milestone in popular music, as many of the world's most commercially successful acts began to strive purposefully for heightened sophistication and substance in their work, driven less by sales and more by artistry than perhaps ever before in the history of the industry. The Monkees seem on the surface level to be very commercial, manufactured, very childlike, but I think as a lot of Monkees fans will tell you, the Monkees actually had a lot of individual artistic expression that they really wanted to get across. I mean, the movie Head is still seen as a pretty bizarre cult classic, directed by Jack Nicholson, weirdly enough. Of course, a lot of their biggest songs and hits in general were written for them, and session musicians played on a great deal of their music. But these guys had a huge amount of individuality. I think it's pretty ridiculous when people just call them Beatles knockoffs. I mean, the Beatles did not make this.
Does it become? Can you dig it?
Or this. Or this.
Not now or any other day.
And yes, these were all songs that were written by the Monkees themselves. The thing is, It's not just me who has this view. The Beatles themselves defended the Monkees musically and artistically, Nesmith famously being in the Day of the Life music video, and Frank Zappa, who hated all things shallow and commercial, was also a big fan of the Monkees. Amongst many historical acts, we also see some relatively modern acts also showing their respect for this band. Aforementioned Rivers Cuomo is a well-known fan, loving their aesthetic and music, and of course Noel Gallagher said Pauper's song is one of the best psychedelic songs ever written. Their music influence goes from indie pop rock Weezer to, bizarrely, Del the Funky Homo Sapien.
Mr. Dabalina, Mr. Bob Dabalina, Mr. Bob Dabalina want to quit. You really make me sick with your fraudulent behavior.
The contributions from all of these different artists exemplifies perfectly how much respect people have for their music. The album is not only musically great, but I think it exemplifies a really deep influence from the band, and that's why I think that this album is really, really quite important. A lot of bands have reunions, but I think this is a bit different. You see, allowing other artists to express their respect for you is a great example of their musical legacy. This very album basically defies the claim that their music was nothing but commercial pop rubbish. Clearly, a lot of other well-known, respected artists would disagree. You see, as this article by the ever-trusted Vanity Fair posits, the Monkees can be measured to be so influential as seen by the level of committee-ridden bubblegum pop which we have to such a huge extent to this day, in which the Monkees were the first to really archetype this. I think it goes deeper than this. I think it's not just the measurable commercial success that the Monkees had which keeps them afloat. I think for me, and a lot of Monkees fans, it goes a bit further than that. The music and the show, the interviews, their contribution, they were a more profound and complicated group of individuals than people make out to be. I think a lot of other artists see this too. It's not just commercialism that kept them relevant. They embodied a very positive spirit of musical representation and personal growth. They were so young at the time, but it was clear the pressure that they were put under pushed them to express themselves in unconventional ways. I mean, they were just so human, and I think that essence is something that has kept them alive all of these decades later. The magic that still makes people smile to this day. The album consists of 13 songs. On Spotify, there's a few extras thrown in there. I'm not going to go through a track-by-track analysis. What's the point in that? I'm just going to sort of outline what I think is important about the music. The thing that I really enjoy and began to appreciate as the album went on was how the music was mastered. It's clear that there's a difference in mixing between the 60s and the modern age, but this album was able to go in between. It was modern when it needed to be, but it was also 60s when it needed to be too. Nothing is out of place and the sound just comes off so naturally. It sounds like the 60s, but it also still sounds really fresh. My personal favourites, as I'm a sap for a lovey-dovey song, were You Bring the Summer, written by Andy Partridge, and She Makes Me Laugh, written by Rivers Cuomo. I really appreciate the callback to a nice minor key bridge in You Bring the Summer. It's sort of a hark back to that 60s style of experimental songwriting, but as I say, because of the mastering, it still sounds rather modern and fresh. Also at the end of the song there's this pretty cool psychedelic reverse guitar piece which kind of reminds me of I'm Only Sleeping, which is obviously by the Beatles. Me and Magdalena is of course another song which garnered a huge amount of respect, and I see why. I mean, it's beautiful, catchy and lyrically profound, written by Gibbard, and as Mickey says, is an example of the Mickey-Mike harmony.
I really wanted to sing that, but Nez gobbled that one up. But it's all right. I'm going to be doing a harmony, because Nez and I always had this wonderful blend. And I don't know if I've ever loved any other.
There's a good mix of fresh beach sound, pop rock, and even some emotional songs like the Mike Nesmith written I Know What I Know, which is also another one of my favourites from the album. The album, I think, is a really good example of a positive yet profound sound which comes from the band. This is something that was even prevalent in the 60s, the way they sing, the upbeat melodies, but they also exhibit some real emotion and understanding of what it is to write a sad song. Let's talk about Davy. By 2016, Davy Jones was no longer with us, but he did have one key contribution on the album. This is the song Love to Love, written by Neil Diamond, first recorded in 1967. This song is a good example of a 60s song which aged perfectly. It fit in well with the rest of the album. Despite being written in 66, it easily holds up and is one of the highlights of the album. Years ago I thought, why is there only one song for Davey? Couldn't they have brought back a few more of the old hits which they could all, sort of rework, a bit like the Beatles did with Now and Then, Free as a Bird and True Love. But after listening to it now, I think I really do appreciate them having really only one. You see, this album is a celebration. They wanted to keep things fresh, have new songs, new ideas, not live in the past, but revive positive elements through modern storytelling. It's a great song, and I think it's a really great tribute to Davey. The only song that I wasn't particularly a fan of was the Peter Tork written contribution Little Girl. I think this is a bit of a shame because Peter Tork actually wrote a lot of my favourite songs from the Monkees. Other than that, the album was fresh, a great callback to the 60s identity, whilst enjoying good modern influence and mastering. It makes me very happy that they got together to make it. Although this is nothing to do with the music, I really love the music video for You Bring the Summer. Obviously I wasn't around in the 60s, but the callback to the Monkees episodes, the album cover transitions, the settings and the art style, everything about this album is a great encapsulation of what a great tribute should be. This isn't just a cheesy cash grab to hang on to the coattails of something that used to be successful. This is a genuinely really good tribute.
I know what I know, and what I know is I know nothing without you.
As of today, Mickey Dolenz is the last surviving member of the Monkees. Davy Jones, as I say, was not present for the album, passing away in 2012. Peter Tork passed away in 2019, and Mike Nesmith passed away in 2021. But I'm glad that there were still three of them alive to help record this final album, to give a little bit more positivity into the world one last time. I don't want to dwell on this section for too long, because there's not much I can say about it which hasn't already been said, and it's a very personal issue. When I made my video on the Zombies, I made the point that they were friends. They split up because of financial problems, but they were actually really good friends. They got on really well. But the Monkees were a bit different than that. Unfortunately, they had problems. They had huge egos. They ended up really sort of hating each other. Even when they did their nationwide tour, there were problems. But they were brothers. This famous clip of Mike and Mickey talking about Peter's death says as follows.
I was sitting there when my assistant Melody got the call. Peter died. And I'm gonna do it now. And I broke into tears. So did you. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
I'm sorry. It's like siblings. Do you have siblings?
I do.
Well, need I say more?
I mean, they fell out a lot, but they loved each other. They were like brothers, as Mickey said. And since Good Times released, another two Monkees had passed away. But I'm glad that at least three of them could have contributed on this album, contributed to such a fitting tribute to the end of an era. As I say, they were more than a manufactured fad. Each of these guys, they had their own personalities, their own contribution, and I think it would be remiss of me to make a video like this as a tribute and not mention my respect for what they gave to us. I mean, of course, it's a personal issue, and I didn't know them personally, but in terms of my life, as I say, they did help me through quite a hard time in my life, and I never understood when I was young, feeling sad about the death of a celebrity, somebody that you didn't know personally. But when you listen back to this album, and as I say, especially Mike's song, I Know What I Know, you can't help but feel sad about it, because they did have an impact on the lives of millions of people. And I think it's an important thing to talk about, especially now after the album was released. Another two Monkees have passed away. It just adds a whole new layer to it. And I think that was just something that was important to talk about. What is the point of music? Yeah, Yeah, I'm going there. Not to be a pretentious knob, of course, but music is entertainment. The Monkees, they created something that made and still to this day makes people smile. They were a pretty profound group with a rich history, and I think they really needed something to represent that. I think this album is a perfect tribute. A great sound. It outlines the positive influence they had for so many people. And of course, if you haven't already, I would give it a listen, if you're into that sort of thing. I think this album is more than just an album. It's a tribute. It's a culmination to an act. A group of guys that brought a huge amount of joy and love and influence into this world. And, well, at least for me, I thought it was something worth talking about.
They're a deck of cards in disguise.
A what?
Deck of cards in disguise.
All right, do a card trick, Mike. Do a card trick.
You want to do a card trick?
Do a card trick.
I'll shuffle them first. Didn't see that, did you? Okay. Pick a card, any card.
Any card?
Any card.
Just any card?
Any card?
They're not real cards, though.
Cool it, please. Okay, you look at it?
Yep.
It's the King of Spades.
How did you know?
Come on.
Come on, how did you know?
It's the only one missing.
Hello again, it's me. As I said before, I just wanted to clear some stuff up. Stuff mainly pertaining to my upload schedule. At the moment, I really try to upload a video every week, every Thursday to be specific. I think I've actually already missed one Thursday. But the thing is, at the end of the day, this is a hobby and I have a full-time job. And sometimes it's quite hard to get things out every single week, especially when I'm trying to do a full-blown video essay or something that I have to do a bit more research, a bit more editing for, stuff like that. So from now on, I think I'm going to try and do quality over quantity, and I think the best course of action is just to do a video every other week. So from now on, I'm setting it in stone, right? I'm setting it in stone. I'm going to upload every 2 weeks on Thursday, because I still think it's important to be disciplined. You still got to have a schedule to motivate you, but yeah, I think for the benefits of quality, it's better for me, especially also so I don't just get burned out, to do a video every other week. And yeah, and obviously, yes, of course, I want to say thank you if you're still watching this. I mean, bloody hell, if you're still watching this, man, this video must have been doing something right. And of course, if you have subscribed, as I say, it means a lot to me. Thank you very much. So hopefully, I'll see you in the next video, and thank you.